they could please, follow up with your doctor, that would be great. There is also a portion that I send home to have it come back as well. So then we have the communication that they were checked outside of school by a physician and the results had come back. The health screenings have been really, really great in determining, vision problems early on. I know over the past couple years, the ones that I have referred, they have actually gotten their glasses and they, it makes their school improvement so much better and they just enjoy being able to see. So it's been really great to detect that early doing the screenings. Next slide, Lucy. Guidance. So this is a few helpful tips of where we get our guidance. We use the CDC, we use NJDOH, and we use HARP. I work very closely with the HARP nurses. They are fantastic. That is a health awareness regional program. They were fantastic during COVID, but anytime I have a question about anything, I go to them. They are the ones that will come in and do our immunization audit and my flu audit right after the holidays. Childcare guidelines might be different than in district. So for me over at Bogart, we also follow licensing guidelines. So if you have a child in kindergarten or first grade or second grade, the protocols might be a little different than having them in preschool in Bogart or Trinity. We are required to follow sorry, Lucy. Can you go back? I just wanted to mention we are required to follow licensing guidelines and they can even vary depending on the child centers. So if you have any questions about them, feel free to reach out to me. Go ahead, next slide. Flu vaccines. So flu shots are due to me no later than we come back from break, January 2nd. If I do not have your child's flu vaccine or proof that they got the vaccine, they will not be able to come in school that day. I really don't want to have to turn anybody away. So please, if you have not gotten your flu vaccine yet, please get it for your child and get us the paperwork. It isn't a school thing. This is state law. So state law requires that every licensed preschool in the state of New Jersey has their child vaccinated for the flu. And as we get closer to flu season and into flu season, last year, I know we ran into kids that, the parents had put off the flu shot for a little while and they were like, we'll get it during the holidays. And then the child was sick during the holidays and they were not able to get it. And they came back after break. And unfortunately, we did have to turn some kids away. So that will, be considered an unexcused absence. So please, if you have not gotten it yet, please do so. And you can always, if you do choose to get it over break, that's fine. You can still message me, email me the results. But I do need to have that in by January 2nd for your child to return to school.
This is a little slide that I created. My name is Lucy. Like I mentioned before, I am the preschool social worker. These are some local pharmacies that provide the flu vaccine with no insurance needed, or if you have your insurance, and most of the time it is free. I will add these resources in the chat. And if you ever need help making an appointment or finding any type of local resource, please let me know. I will leave my information as well in the chat box. So this is something that I can also help with and find a resource for you guys so we can get those flu vaccines in.
Thank you so much, Lucy. Okay, universal health forms and immunizations. We do have that every child has to have an updated universal health record or an annual physical exam within 30 days of enrollment, and they have to be done once a year. We also have the state come in and do an audit on our universal health forms and all our immunizations. A lot of times that audit is unannounced and we don't know when they're coming, so it's a surprise for us. But we do get penalized if we don't have what we need for each child, and they can actually force the child then to not come to school if we don't have the proper paperwork and the proper immunizations. They will not allow. So it is important that, you'll see messages from me all the time. I try to remind parents like, hey, your son or daughter's physical is expiring this month, just a heads up, please make an appointment. And I usually try to do that the first of the month. So it gives you the whole 30 days. So you can, make an appointment, have the physical. So we keep all that up to date. Once the child has their annual exam, the paperwork can please just be returned to me, and I check them off on the list. So whenever our audit takes place, we're good to go. Thanks, Lucy. Okay, communicable diseases. So the following are just a general list of our most common communicable diseases that we see in early childhood and elementary school settings. Coxsackie is one of them, hand, foot, and mouth. In preschool, they're always hands are in the mouth, in the eyes, on the toys, so that is a big one, as well as pink eye. RSV was very popular last year. I feel like it was like we had more cases of that than even the flu or COVID. And that's a really nasty respiratory virus for the kids. So we're very careful with that one. If a child does have RSV, they're a lot of times on nebulizers and inhalers, sometimes steroids. And we did have a lot of that last year. So hopefully, we don't experience so much of that this year. But that's a big one to look out for, especially in the next coming months. Also the common cold, reactive airway, other respiratory illnesses like pneumonia and mycoplasma, that has been going around for the past month and a half, 2 months. There's been a huge uptick in mycoplasma. Flu and strep. Please remember that all of these can also mimic COVID-19 symptoms. So it does make things a little bit confusing. We do try to keep everyone in school safe and healthy. We do a lot of disinfecting and a lot of hand washing, especially with flu season coming on. Next slide, please, Lucy. So just some general reminders: fevers, vomiting, diarrhea, that all requires a student to obviously be home from school, but also they need to be fever-free, diarrhea-free, vomiting-free for at least 24 hours without any of those symptoms and without medication prior to them returning to school. We will continue to go outside also in the next, couple weeks and throughout the winter months. So please make sure that the children are dressed accordingly to the weather: hats, scarves, gloves, all that stuff. We try to make sure that our teachers bundle them up before we go out. Obviously, if it's 32 degrees and freezing or below, we do not, but we do try to go out almost every day, as long as the temperature is above freezing. So you also want to make sure that the child is well enough to participate in the day's activities. So they might be feeling better, but if they feel like by lunchtime they're really lethargic or they're sleepy or they're tired, they really have to be able to participate every day in the activities. It's uncomfortable for them to be at school when they don't feel good. So that's, another thing to think about. And then again, the flu vaccine. Next slide, Lucy. Medication. So we are able to administer prescription medications if absolutely needed. They will be provided to the school. They need to be with doctor's written orders with an original prescription, a parent order, and the medication must be labeled with the child's name and prescription in the original package. We do encourage that the first dose of medication must be administered at home. So if the child is starting a brand new medication and you bring them in with the medication, they've never had it before, we probably will not give it to them because we need the first one to be done at home. If the child has a reaction to anything or something like that that's brand new to them, it is better to be with the parents so they can monitor the child. We do keep on file EpiPens, we keep nebulizers and stuff like that for food allergies. And the nebulizers, especially during the winter months when RSV is very popular. At the end of the school year, we do ask that all the medications are picked up. I usually have the parents sign off that they received it and they are returned to the parents on the last day of school. So if you have any medication on file with myself, please make sure that you stop by my office before you leave so you can pick up the medication for your child. Flu and illness season. As we approach flu season, please know we will be taking some extra precautions at school to keep our students and our staff healthy. Hand washing is a quick and easy way to help reduce the spread of germs. The kids wash their hands multiple times throughout the day. There are a few things that you can do at home as well. We ask that you keep your student home when they're sick. Please keep us posted as to any illnesses or symptoms that they are experiencing. We do ask that you wash and clean their bedding every weekend when it comes home. And we've, thank goodness, like the parents are really great about doing that, sending it home, coming back clean. So thank you all so much for the cooperation. We really appreciate that. Chronic absenteeism. So attendance is really important for, every day for your child. It's good that they're in the routine of coming to school and, being there every day. Just to note, missing 18 days of school is considered chronic absenteeism. We understand keeping your child home when they're sick. If you can provide a doctor's note, they are medically excused. But however, once they are feeling better, we do really strongly encourage them to be at school. It just gives them, routine and helps prepare them for kindergarten. We really want all our students to gain the full benefits of the program. And one way to do that is for them to be there and be present every day. There are many ways to communicate your child being absent. You can call the school, you can email, you can send a message through Brightwheel. And you can send these messages anytime. If the child spikes a fever in the middle of the night or at 11 p.m. the night before, you can send the message on Brightwheel, when we'll see it in the morning. Travel plans. Travel is, I know, a lot of people book vacations and sometimes they're already booked, but we do try to encourage, if you are going to plan a vacation during the school year, that you do it over winter break or over spring break or a long weekend that we have off. We also ask that you submit a letter ahead of time. That way we forward it up to district and they will approve it. Next slide, Lucy. Thanks. So just a conclusion to wrap up my portion, there is some helpful links there on the side for flu basics and healthy habits. If anybody has any questions at any time, please feel free to reach out to me at the school or an email or Brightwheel. And as always, thank you all for your help and your understanding as we take care of these little ones.
Thank you, Erin. I just sent the link for various local pharmacies where our kids can get the flu vaccine. And now we have our nutrition portion that I'll pass it over to Jennifer. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Lucy. Can everybody hear me okay? I just wanted to make sure.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure my microphone was working. So I'm Jennifer Bonadonna, and I'm the school nurse over at Steen School. So that's pre-K, but also the elementary school. And I'm going to be talking for a bit about health, nutrition, healthy eating, because as we all know, that toddler stage and eating, it can be a battleground. So a little bit about me first. So I'm a certified school nurse as well as a registered nurse. And I've been in the Bogota public school system for 10 years now. I'm also a mom to 2 boys. So my boys are 7 and 3 now. And my younger son actually goes to Trinity. So he's a Bogota preschool student in the private classroom. Food, healthy eating, and everything that goes along with it. The reasons that we eat the foods that we do, our relationship with food, all of that is something that I'm actually really passionate about. So if there's something that we don't get to during this workshop that you want to talk more about, please feel free to contact me. I put my email there, or you can call Steen and just hit the extension for the nurse, and we can set up a time to chat about it. I'd love to talk about it. Next slide, please. And just a couple of quick notes before we begin. So Every child is a little bit different. Every child's needs are different. So please just talk it over with your child's pediatrician before you make any type of dietary changes. And I don't endorse any specific diets, products, or brands, and I don't get any kind of compensation from any companies to do this presentation. So the big question that most parents have is, how much should my preschooler be eating? And the answer might be a little bit surprising. So in general, a 3 and 4-year-old needs about 1,200 to 1,400 calories. So that's about 600 calories less than your typical adult. It might sound like a lot. It also depends on how tall they are, how much they weigh, and their level of activity. But believe it or not, you don't have to worry so much about the number of calories that your child is eating, because the human body is actually really good at regulating that. So if you are providing a healthy and varied diet and you allow your child to eat until they're full, they generally will naturally hit that goal on their own. Next slide, please. So just very quickly going through some of the major categories of food. So carbohydrates are the body's main source of energy. These are your sugars, your starches, and your fiber. They're found in fruits, grains, beans, vegetables, and milk products. The carbohydrate-containing foods in that top picture there, so the naturally occurring ones, they're rich in nutrients. So there's been a lot of popular news lately about like cutting carbs, but carbohydrate-containing foods are actually super, super nutritious. So you don't want to restrict carbohydrates, especially in growing children. The fiber in those kind of foods are really important for digestion and helping children have a regular bowel movement. So unfortunately, I see lots and lots of belly aches in my little ones. And a lot of times that can be from constipation. So they're not having a regular bowel movement. Sometimes that's because they're not getting enough fiber. Sometimes it's because they only like to go to the bathroom at home, which is something that we also want to help them get past. You want to limit the really processed carbohydrates, so your chips, your candy, your ice cream. You really want to focus on the whole foods, the unprocessed foods as a source of carbohydrates. Next slide, please. Then you have protein. Protein is the building blocks of your body's tissues, including the muscles, the skin, hair, nails, tendons and ligaments, and organs. So I always, tell my kids that if you need to eat protein to get big, strong muscles. So your protein is found in meats, beans, eggs, fish, milk products, and nuts. And when you can, you want to choose, again, the whole food versions over things that are like protein supplements. So protein bars and protein drinks, protein shakes, you want to stay away from, and try to guide your children towards more whole foods. And then the last category is fats. So there are healthy fats and there are unhealthy fats. Again, like the very processed foods, things that are deep fried, they tend to have something that's trans fat, or like your hydrogenated oils. Those are the ones that we see kids' cholesterol start to jump up. They're bad cholesterol. But other sources of fats are actually very healthy. Fat is, again, a rich source of nutrients and a rich source of energy. It's found in meat, fish, milk, eggs, avocados, olives, and coconut, as well as nuts and seeds. And as a general rule, the less processed, the better. So trying to stay away from things like margarine and fried foods, focusing more on your olive oil, your avocado, and those types of foods is much heart healthier. And another thing, like in the popular media, sometimes they say to cut fat, but eating fat doesn't make you fat. the connection is just that fat has a lot of calories per gram, but fat is a really, really important thing for young children to eat because it helps with brain building and hormones. Next slide, please. And then the different food groups. This here is the My Plate that the government has come out with as a replacement to the food pyramid that we saw when we were kids. So it just shows on the plate that you want to have a balance of all those different groups at each meal. Next slide, please. So now we're going to talk a little bit about portion sizes, and this to me was the most surprising part. So a lot of people are worried about how much their toddler, their preschooler is consuming. But if you take a look at that first column, so that's the portion size for ages 1 to 3. So our younger preschoolers are in that category. So if you're looking at fruit, only a 1/4 cup of fruit counts as a serving for them. So 2 to 3 servings, or like half of a piece of fresh fruit. So if your child eats a whole piece of fresh fruit, they've actually hit their 2 servings of fruit for the day. So it might seem like they're just picking at their plate and they take 1 or 2 bites, but over the whole day, if they're eating like a whole piece of fruit, they've hit their goal. The same thing for vegetables, 1/4 cup cooked. And even when you get to like the 4 to 6-year-olds, so these are our older preschoolers and kindergarteners, it's like a half cup of salad. So if you took out a half cup measuring cup in your kitchen, it's actually not that big of an amount. So your kids might be eating more servings of vegetables than you actually thought they were. And you can just see the other servings. So for grains, for the 3-year-old, 2 to 3 crackers is a whole serving of grains. And for a 4 to 6-year-old, it's 3 to 4 crackers. If we could actually skip ahead to the next slide, because that gives you an idea of what the portions actually look like. So when we have a 1 cup, that's the size of a baseball. 3/4 of a cup is about the size of a tennis ball. A half cup is about the size of a computer mouse. A 1/4 cup is about the size of an egg. 3 ounces is a deck of cards. So some of the serving sizes on the previous slide, I think for meat and for cheese were a 1 ounce serving. So that's just 1/3 of the deck of playing cards. So that would be a cheese stick, is like 1 ounce of cheese. That's already a whole serving of dairy. And then 2 teaspoons, which is the serving size for like a nut butter. That's only the size of a ping pong ball. So if you make a peanut butter sandwich for your child who's not allergic to nuts, the peanut butter, 2 teaspoons the size of a ping pong ball, they're getting a whole serving of a protein right there. Next slide, please. So this is where the battles start to come in. So a lot of toddlers and preschoolers are really picky eaters. So you're not alone. Many children are fussy when it comes to what foods they want to eat. And picky eating is actually very normal, and it occurs for a variety of reasons. So sometimes it's just individual personality. Some kids really like to have control, and this is one way that they can do it. Individual preferences. So we as adults, we all have things that we like and we don't like, and it's the same for our kids. Social and cultural influences. So your children grew up eating the foods that you served them. A lot of them are probably culturally influenced, what you grew up eating, what you cook in your home. And then some of them are socially influenced. So it's what they see their friends eating, what they see being eaten on TV. So all of those things kind of affect how they feel about food and how they look at it. Family eating habits. So if you sit down to dinner with your kids, they see what you're eating. So that can also have an influence on them. Sense of control, I already mentioned. And then there's this really neat phenomenon, which is called food neophobia. So neo coming from new, phobia, fear. So it's actually a fear of trying something new. And it's something that we as humans develop through evolution that actually keeps young children safe. So kids have this ingrained sense of being afraid to try something new, because as hunter-gatherers and people out in the woods, you didn't want your young child just wandering up to anything, picking it up and putting it in their mouth to eat it. So it's actually like a protective mechanism that kids have developed over many, many generations. Next slide, please. Did we skip one? There we go. So there are some things not to do that I wanted to start with. And you can see in the picture, dessert is for members of the Clean Plate Club only. So a lot of us have grown up with this idea that you have to eat whatever, the whole amount that's on your plate. And dessert is kind of the reward. So those kinds of things have actually been found to have a negative effect on picky eating. So the new research suggests that you shouldn't force a meal or a snack on your child if they're saying that they're not hungry. We try not to bribe or force kids to eat certain foods or to clean their plate, meaning eat everything on their plate. Another thing that we strongly suggest you don't do is preparing a separate meal specifically for your child that's different from your own. So like if you're eating your typical dinner and then you go and make a pot of macaroni and cheese for your child, that's different from what you're eating. And something else that they have found can have a negative influence is talking negatively about foods. So your children are always listening and it kind of sneaks into their brain. So if you call food junk food, or if you say that vegetables taste bad or give them the impression that they do, that becomes part of their subconscious attitude towards food. Next slide, please. So here are some things that you can try instead. Keep offering the nutritious food. So nutrition science research shows that it can take a child between 8 and 15 exposures to a new food just to bump themselves up on the acceptance scale of that food. Doesn't mean they're going to like it, but just 8 to 15 exposures just to get a little bit more accepting of it. Most parents kind of give up after 3, 4, 5 times, but the persistence can pay off. So exposure doesn't mean that they have to actually eat 12 servings of the food. You want to kind of incorporate all of the 5 senses when you're talking about exposure. So exposing your child to the food, it might mean that they see a friend or a relative eat the food. They might just be looking at it in the dish on the table. They might be listening to you talk about the food, listening to a story or a song about the food. So there's like, there's different children's programs, including Veggie Tales, where the characters are actually vegetables. They say that that can actually have a positive influence on getting kids to try new vegetables. Helping to prepare the food, that's a really big one for preschoolers. Preschoolers are naturally helpers, so they really want to be involved. So if you can have them like scrub the vegetables before you're making dinner, or help them help you put them in the pot, or help you stir while you're cooking, those things go a long way towards having them accept the food. Then, of course, feeling the food, smelling it, and tasting it. Those would all count as an exposure. Something else that's recommended is offering safe foods. So that would be a food that your child already accepts and likes alongside a new food. So put them both on the plate at the same time. And then you want to use lots and lots of positive reinforcement. So praise your child for trying the new food. You could say something like, I love how brave you were for taking a bite, or that was a really good job. You put those carrots on your plate. And then, of course, we always want to be a role model. So if you load up your plate with lots of healthy food and your child sees you eating it, that can have a really good positive influence as well. Another thing is to make it fun. So sometimes putting a whole portion of something on a plate is really intimidating to a preschooler. So if you cut up the sandwich, if you look in the bottom corner, that sandwich that's cut up into little cubes, that's much more inviting to a young child. They're more likely to eat something that's in small portions like that. And of course, if you can make it fun, you could use cookie cutters. You could just present it in a colorful way. If you see the sandwich laid on top of the fruits in the top left-hand corner, it looks really inviting. And just getting really creative can entice your child to try something new. And of course, one of my favorite strategies is a dip. Kids love to dip their food. And if they have a dip that they like ranch dressing or ketchup or whatever it is, a lot of times they will use that to mask the flavor of whatever vegetable or other food that they're not so thrilled about. And that's one way of getting them to try it. As I mentioned earlier, getting them involved is probably the best thing you can do. So have them sit down with you and help you plan the menu, bring them grocery shopping with you. I know that sometimes gets crazy, but if you can take them grocery shopping with you and help you pick things out, it gives them a sense of ownership over what they're eating. If you can't take them grocery shopping, let them help as much as they can with cooking and setting the table. Let them choose their own plate or cup. Again, giving them that sense of control and sense of ownership goes a long way towards getting them to accept the foods. Something else that's fun with kids is trying a little garden, even if it's a windowsill garden, growing a fresh herb or a vegetable to get them excited about the growing process. And if they grow it, they're more likely to try it. Another really fun idea is challenging your kids to eat the rainbow. So young kids are really attracted to bright colors. So that's why a lot of the products marketed to kids use food coloring to make them really bright. But as you can see from this picture, all of those colors also occur in nature. So if you can, either while grocery shopping or at home, try to see if your child can identify these different colors in fruits and vegetables and challenge them to eat the rainbow. So see if they can eat something from these different fruit groups. So for red, you have things like apples, tomatoes, raspberries. The orange group, you have oranges, carrots, sweet potatoes, squash, yellow, green, all of the different colors. Next slide, please. Something else that's fun, you can try switching things up. So you could try serving something that's traditionally a breakfast food for dinner, dinner food for breakfast. My boys actually really like pizza in the morning. And if you can sneak some extra vegetables onto it and make it a fun breakfast, you've already got some of your grains and some of your dairy and some of your veggies first meal of the day. And then another one that my kids like is to have breakfast for dinner. So sometimes we'll do pancakes for dinner with yogurt and fruit, scrambled eggs. Trying a new fruit or vegetable. Again, if you can take your kids grocery shopping with you, one of the things my sons like to do is go into the fruit and vegetable aisle and look for different fruits that they'd never tried before. So in the bottom, you have a star fruit, which is cool because if you cut cross sections of it, it's star shaped. There are mini versions of a lot of vegetables. So I've seen miniature patty pan squash is what's in the picture, but they have miniature eggplants. There's purple potatoes. There's purple cauliflower. So there's lots of interesting fruits and vegetables out there. Next slide, please. Something else that works really well is small portions with a lot of variety. So letting kids pick what they want from a big assortment. And one of the ways you can do that you probably already have at home is a muffin tin. So filling each compartment with something different, trying to make them mostly healthy. And then there's something called a snackle box, which is kind of like a tackle box for fishing, but each compartment has a different snack in it. Next slide, please. So here's the big one. But my kid only eats chicken nuggets. So sometimes kids get stuck on one particular food and it seems like that's the only thing that they will eat. This can be normal, Usually it's not harmful, not a big deal. And the way that we try to get kids past being stuck like that is to include something else at the same time. So for instance, if it is chicken nuggets, if your child dips chicken nuggets in ketchup, give them some cut up vegetables next to the chicken nuggets with more ketchup to dip. Sometimes it can become a problem, which I will get into in just a little bit. But for the most part, getting stuck on one food is pretty typical. Next slide, please. So when it becomes a concern, when you need to follow up with your pediatrician, if your child doesn't eat anything from an entire food group for 2 full weeks in a row, so if they haven't had anything that's from that protein group in 2 whole weeks, then you want to contact your pediatrician. Same thing, if they haven't had a fruit or vegetable in 2 whole weeks, that can be a concern. If your child is losing weight, or it seems like they've stopped growing, or it seems like they have less energy than they usually have, those are all signs that they might not be getting the nutrition that they need. And that's when you need to follow up with the pediatrician for some additional help. Another cause for concern is if your child's actually afraid or anxious about food or eating. So if it's not that they're just like, no, I don't want to eat that. If they seem like they're afraid to eat it, or they start having like anxiety, avoidance of coming to the table at all, those are things that you want to follow up with the pediatrician. And of course, if you have any other concerns that aren't mentioned, pediatricians are always happy to talk to you about it. So definitely don't hesitate to speak with them. Next slide. Another question that comes up a lot is, what about vitamins? There's lots and lots of kids' vitamins on the market, but the research on vitamins is kind of conflicting. Normally, kids who eat a healthy, balanced diet will fill their nutritional needs through their food. Especially a lot of our foods are already supplemented with vitamins. So most of the flour that we get already has vitamins added. Your cereals and crackers, even a lot of juices now have vitamins added. So a lot of times those vitamins are not needed and they're expensive as well. They can be useful though in filling what's called a nutritional gap. So if you have a child who's really, really picky, if your child has a health concern that causes them to have increased nutritional needs, or if you follow a vegetarian or vegan diet, sometimes pediatricians will recommend a vitamin supplement. The other thing is vitamin D. So that's another one that's been in the news a lot. We live in a northern latitude, so vitamin D also comes from sunlight. And during the winter months, we don't get enough sunlight to produce our own vitamin D. And there's very few food sources of vitamin D. Milk is enriched with it. But if your child doesn't drink a lot of milk, your pediatrician might suggest supplementing with vitamin D. And the other thing is the tap water in New Jersey, unlike other states, we don't have fluoride added. So just touching on the dental part that Erin spoke about a little earlier, fluoride is really important for teeth. So sometimes pediatricians, especially if your child does have any dental issues, they will recommend a prescription vitamin that has fluoride in it. So if your pediatrician recommends a vitamin, they can actually prescribe you one. So always check with the pediatrician. Sugar in kids. So we want to minimize sugar in the form of added sugar as much as possible. So sugar that's naturally occurring in fruits, that's not something that we need to worry about, but you want to aim for less than 25 grams, which is 6 teaspoons of added sugar per day. And now nutrition labels have to show you what the added sugar is on the label. So you can just keep track of it. And you just have to be really careful because for some reason they add it to everything. So if you look at even canned tomato sauce, there's a ton of sugar in it. Ketchup has a ton of sugar in it. A lot of yogurts that are marketed to children have a lot of added sugar. So you want to just try to keep it to under 25 grams per day. Next slide, please. Snacks are really big with young children because they have small stomachs. A lot of kids prefer snacking throughout the day instead of meals, but snacking can sometimes get out of control. So some tips for healthy snacking. If you can invest in a set of containers that keep snacks from getting smushed, it's much easier to pack something that's healthy instead of having to resort to like a prepackaged snack. And a fun water bottle helps kids to want to drink more water. So if it has like a character or design or a color that they like, they're more likely to use it. I will say that most of our preschoolers are really good about drinking water. They drink it throughout the day and it's really encouraged at school, but they already do a really good job of that. Again, taking your child to the grocery store to help you pick out nutritious snacks. If you can start in the produce section, which in most stores you enter there, so that's a good place to start, and try to fill up with fruits and vegetables. Baby carrots, berries, those are things that young children really like, and they're really nutritionally packed. Packing a balanced snack that includes a fruit or veggie and a protein or fat at the same time is a really good combination because it has a mix of fiber and protein. So those things are digested more slowly and they help keep kids fuller for longer. Another thing that really helps is setting dedicated snack times instead of just like whenever you're hungry, grab a snack. If your child knows that snack time is coming up at a certain time, it can help them to regulate instead of just kind of grazing throughout the day. And one thing that we really, really want to encourage is not snacking in front of a screen. So if your child's like on the iPad or watching TV and they're snacking, they're distracted from their natural body cues that tell them when they're full, and it can cause them to eat more than they would normally eat because they're not paying attention to their body. So if they can snack and then go watch their iPad, that's much better. Same goes for adults too. I know we do that too. Next slide, please. These are just some ideas for packing a snack. There's many, many different options, and of course, just go by what your child likes. But there's lots of ideas here. And again, so picking something from the first column and combining it with something from the second column, that's going to be like your really powerful snack that has the fiber as well as the protein or fat to keep them full for a long time. Next slide, please. And just wanted to finish up by touching on some other healthy habits. It's really important to set the healthy habits now while they're young. That way they're in the routine, they're used to it, and they can continue it as they get older. So washing your hands with soap before you eat, and after using the bathroom, after coughing, after sneezing or blowing your nose, and after playing outside or touching anything frequently touched. So especially tablets and cell phones, they can actually be really, really germy. So another reason not to snack in front of the tablet. And then brushing your teeth so that we can keep our dental health really good. So try to brush with a soft bristle toothbrush. And you want to brush after meals, especially before bedtime, so that food residue is not sitting on their teeth overnight. And of course, we want to encourage physical activity and limit screen time. So the current Academy of Pediatrics recommendation for screen time is 1 hour or less for preschoolers. And that's 1 hour or less per day.
Okay, I believe that's the end of our presentation. I want to thank Jennifer and Aaron and all their families that came and joined us today. If anybody had any question you feel comfortable asking, we'll be taking questions, or if not, we can answer some privately. I will send everybody the presentation through email if you're interested. So thank you so much for joining us tonight if we don't have any further questions. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
You guys
you.
did a great job. Nice presenting, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very informative and professional. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thank
night,
you for your
everybody.
time. Have a
Thank
good
you
night.
so
Thank
much.
you guys. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.